And so welcome to everybody who's on this webinar and those who are coming on. We're really excited and grateful that you are taking the time here on your Thursday afternoon to be with us and to go into this subject of spiritual purpose and spiritual mission. And I want to start by introducing my co-presenter, which is Vidya Frazier.
Hi.
She's from Sebastopol, California. It's about an hour north of me. I'm here in Marin County. I'm Darren Starwin. And Vidya is such a treat to learn with her because, as you'll see later, she's written at least 4 books, countless blogs, has led countless workshops over, I won't say countless decades, but I will say quite a few decades. I'm sure you could at least count the decades, but certainly quite a few of them. And it's just a light to be around, just a beautiful presence and a lot of wisdom. And she's going to start the presentation tonight for the first 35 minutes. And then after that, I'm Darren Starwin. I will do the second part of it. And then we will have time for some practicum that we'll be doing and some questions and answers at the end and more resources if you want to go further with this information. So anyway, we're going to start right now. And I just want to give you a few little housekeeping tips is that if you take your mouse and go to the bottom of your screen, there will be several icons that will open up that you'll see open up. And one of them is you have something that says a chat. Looks like a little balloon. So if you click on that, you can type a message anytime you want. And when we have time later on, I'll be able to go and look at those chats and we'll answer questions or engage in comments with you. And it'll be first come, first serve, because I'm sure we won't have time to answer everybody's questions and comments. So the sooner you write your comments there in the chat, the more likely it is that we'll be able to engage with you, which we would love to do. So Vidya, why don't you start and tell us a little bit about the purpose of the class?
Well, I think you've pretty much told about the purpose of it. What I'd like to do is just first of all say, this is just fantastic to be on a call like this with so many people feeling they have a higher purpose to accomplish during these times of great transition we're in. It just makes me so happy, you know, with all the chaos and the polarization and hatred and fear. They're just running rampant out there at this point. You know, we are definitely in what's been called the transitional times, when humanity is being propelled forward toward making a profound leap into a much higher consciousness, sometimes known as the 5th dimension. And I'm just really feeling there's a demand at this point for a particular type of spiritual leadership in the world, a demand for people with a real sense of purpose of wanting to help to heal and guide and raise consciousness among people in any way possible, to assist them through these tumultuous times that I think we're actually just beginning to experience. And to do this by, if nothing else, just staying calm and grounded and centered in as high of a spiritual vibration as possible, no matter what's happening. And I'm just assuming that all of us here are probably part of that group destined to help do this. You know, this feeling of having a higher purpose is a strange thing sometimes. For some of us, it's a feeling that has grown and shifted and evolved over time. And for me, a sense of this higher purpose, I realized, first came to me as a knowing almost 50 years ago. I shows you how old I am. I had learned back then that a golden age would be appearing sometime after the new millennium started. And that as we approached that time, we would be moving through some really turbulent times as humanity and the earth began to shift into a dramatically higher consciousness. You know, this had been predicted by many prophecies and ancient texts over the centuries, and I'd read them. And, you know, they would talk about how there would be great unrest and chaos in the world at this point of the shift, and also within each one of us as individuals, as our old world was in the process of dying and our new world was struggling to be born. And I knew at that time that I was somehow here to be part of that process, helping people through the transition, both psychologically and spiritually. So I began back then to offer sessions and workshops, to help people heal and evolve and awaken, to prepare them for these times. And over the years and decades, as I myself healed and evolved and awakened, I approached my work somewhat differently to match whatever it was I was learning at that time, or what really brought me alive. But as the years went by, especially once we were in the early 2000s, I really began wondering, is anything ever going to happen? Is there really going to be some big shift of some kind? Because God, it sure didn't seem like it. If anything, things were getting worse. And I got very discouraged for a while. But then at some point, I started seeing how things really were beginning to shift. And I could see that what had been called the transitional times had really already begun. I could see the chaos and the loss and the collapse that were happening in many people's lives around me, including my own, and out in the world. And in time, it became clear that my higher purpose at this point had a new specific focus, and that was to assist and encourage others who know they have a higher purpose in becoming the new leaders and way showers in the world. And because the years went by, it just seemed, since I was getting so much older, that I and others of my generation had built a bridge for others in younger generations to walk over and then guide other people over to begin creating the new earth. And so here we are. This is kind of what we're doing. And as we can see, a great deal is now really shifting in the world, collapsing and falling apart, and also in a lot of our lives. And so I just think it's really time for us to truly step forward at this point and do what we are here to do, to assist humanity and the earth in navigating the shift into this new dimension of consciousness. And we can actually realize that it's a time we've all been waiting for, even if we didn't know about it. Indeed, that it's probably the reason we've incarnated on the earth at this particular time. The way I see it, everyone incarnating on the earth has what could be called a soul purpose. Before birth, we drew up a soul contract, which outlined, among other things, a general personal purpose for this incarnation, which is often to learn something in particular, or to balance certain kind of karma. It might be to learn about love, or experience empowerment, or maybe serve as a mother to many children, or complete specific karma for the family line, or some combination of these kinds of things. And the way I see it, everyone has this kind of purpose. However, not everyone has what could be called a higher purpose, or what I often refer to as a spiritual mission. And when I use this word mission, don't think of missionaries. Think of more like Mission Impossible, or what a Starfleet commander might have, an important task to accomplish. A spiritual mission is a very specific kind of purpose. It's a calling, if you will, that certain mature souls have taken on to try to accomplish during this incarnation, with the goal of serving humanity and the earth in a particular way during these times of ascension. And it's more than just enjoying being of service. A lot of good-hearted people are drawn to helping people whenever they can. If you have a mission, you're here to help heal and support and guide people in some particular way toward higher consciousness in the great shift that's taking place, or to help restore the earth back to its pristine beauty. You're here in some way to help create the new earth. And you're what I would call an ascension light worker. And it's just something in your heart that you're here to do. And some of you may have known about your spiritual mission as far back as childhood. Some people do. Others, like me, have maybe slowly become aware of it as you've grown into adulthood. Still others, although knowing definitely that you do have a mission, you may still be trying to figure out what exactly it is and how you should be expressing it. Or possibly you just can't seem to get it started somehow. Or maybe you're already doing your mission and you know this, but you're feeling that you could expand more in your role, be more effective, more clear in expressing it. Perhaps you're feeling challenged by fears or self-doubt, self-judgment, or by ineffective relationship patterns that get in your way. You keep sabotaging yourself in some way. And all of these things can be really frustrating when you're sincerely eager to serve in the best way possible. So that's what we're here to explore and become more clear about. So first, I find it's helpful to understand a couple of things about all of us who have a sense of higher purpose or mission. And the first is that we all have particular unique abilities and skills and gifts of consciousness that we have to offer. Some of them we're not even aware of at this point. They haven't come online with us yet. But most of them we've probably already been expressing in one way or another for most of our lives, whether we've been aware of this or not. In fact, if you were to look back on everything you've ever done, everything you've experienced, everything you've learned, you might be able to see that it's all had a purpose in preparing you for your spiritual mission and has helped you to do it along the way. All experiences, everything you've ever learned, it kind of all fits together like a tapestry. And you can see that certain threads carry all the way through it. And you can discover that there is nothing random that has ever occurred in your life. Even the most difficult, challenging experiences have offered great learning that can be put to use for your mission. If it's not clear yet what your mission is, know that it's likely similar to what you've already been doing or learning or focusing on. But it'll probably be a step up from this, a way that's more concrete, more effective, and more expansive an expression of it. A second thing to understand is that not everyone with a spiritual mission is what could be called a spiritual activist. You know, someone expressing as a healer or a teacher or a leader in some outer way. Not all ascension light workers are activists. You may be what's been called a frequency holder. Perhaps you're not drawn to being someone with an obvious outer expression of your mission, and yet you know you can hold a high and powerful frequency of love and light, and you're aware of the power of this ability you have. Frequency holders with this power are really important. Their energy helps to create a field for the collective at large out there. You can't see it, but it's very real and it can be tapped into. And frequency holders also act as a type of battery of light for the people who are out there in the world acting as spiritual activists. But whatever your spiritual mission is, know that it's important and that it's needed now more than ever before. So it's really important for every one of us who's feeling called at this point to be an ascension light worker, to get clear about anything that stands in the way of doing our missions in the highest, most effective way possible. So whether you're someone who is still not sure what your mission is, or you already know, but you're feeling somewhat stuck in moving forward with it as quickly and as effectively as you'd like, let's look at some reasons that can cause this kind of stuckness. And the first reason, and I think this probably applies to just about all of us, it could be that we have certain karmic situations or patterns that are still needing to be resolved before we can step more fully into our missions. Or it could be a relationship you're involved in. that is not conducive to whatever it is you're here to do. Some people, for instance, are fearful of letting go of a marriage or a long-time partnership they've been in for years, although they're aware that they're being held back spiritually by staying in it. That's the kind of thing, we all have to look at. Now, if you're someone thinking you're already doing your mission, but it hasn't been working well for some reason, you keep getting stuck, it may be helpful to also be aware of two common traps you can fall into when you're involved in doing your mission that can prevent you from being as successful or as effective as you might like. So the first one is when you begin attaching your sense of identity to your role in your mission. Like thinking, I am a healer, I am a teacher, I'm an Akashic reader, a Reiki master, whatever. Defining that this is who you are. This kind of identification with a role can bring on certain difficulties with performing your mission, such as hidden ego agendas you're not aware of. Like, for instance, although you may know sincerely you do wish to serve, perhaps you're not aware of a need you may have to feel special or valuable or important or successful. That gets in your way. Many people are waking up to these kinds of hidden agendas. And if you still have this kind of need to feel special and important, it's also good to understand that something else you're probably doing is attaching your sense of self-value and your feeling of well-being onto your mission and your feeling of success with it. So if you feel your mission is going well, then you feel good about yourself. But if not, you feel bad, maybe like you're failing. And this, of course, brings an imbalance into your service. It's a kind of a neediness or an insecurity that is mixed in there, and it just weakens your effectiveness. Now, this need to feel important or special, it's a hard one to tackle because it's usually unconscious. And sometimes, if an awareness of this does come up, then a feeling of shame can also arise because, your ego is showing, so to speak. But if this happens for you, just realize that unless you're a fully enlightened being, it's natural to still have some hidden ego agendas. You really need to be compassionate with yourself. It's just important to become aware of these agendas that can sometimes stubbornly hang on and just do whatever you can to heal them. Generally, what is needed is a greater sense of love for yourself. You develop that and the agendas just kind of fall by the wayside. However, there is another difficulty that can arise when you're attaching your identification to your role and your performance of your mission. And this is that it can prevent you from knowing who you really are as a soul, who happens to be doing something in this physical world called a spiritual mission. You're identifying with the role you're playing with the mission, the doing of something, the performing of it, rather than experiencing yourself from the highest aspect of who you are, a soul. So you're not going to be as effective and clear as you might be. It's important to remember, whether you're involved in doing your mission or not, you are always you, an extraordinary spiritual being who really doesn't need to do anything in the way of outer service to be valuable. Just your being, your presence can at times be all that's needed. And what you're doing, your mission, is just an added bonus you're offering. So, identifying with your role in doing your mission is an important trap to be aware of. But there's a second one I found. And you can fall into it when you attach financial stress to it. And I see many people doing this. And this is when you have a belief that in order to feel successful in your spiritual mission, you need to make money from it and earn your living by doing it. That proves that you're being successful with it. If you have this belief, then what happens if you're not financially successful, you can start judging yourself and doubting your mission, and then sabotaging yourself with fear and stress. And this, of course, is not helpful either. Of course, it's fine to make money from your mission. There's no problem with that at all. But if there's stress attached to this process, it's not helpful. So these are some common reasons people get stuck when attempting to bring their higher purpose into full expression. Now let's have you explore what kinds of challenges you may be experiencing. Some of them may be the same as I've just described. Others may be more specific to you. So let's just do this by starting out with having you close your eyes and taking a deep breath. And then see if you can bring your awareness, your focus, into the center of your head. And I say this because often, without being aware of it, we keep our attention focused outside of our physical body, floating somewhere around us in our mental body out there. But what you can find is if you can bring your focus inside to the middle of your head, right there behind your eyes, and up a little bit, and you're at your pineal gland. You can find that you're suddenly a lot more present and a lot more in charge. This is your power center. Feel the difference of how present you become when you bring your attention inside to the center of your head like this. And then, from here, begin focusing on your breath. And with each breath, breathe divine light into your heart. Just breathe it in. And now breathe in divine love. And with each out-breath, see this light and love flowing into a field around you that expands further and further with each breath out into the room, and then into the quantum field where all of us are here together. And now just fall even deeper inside yourself. Just feel your body totally relaxing into your chair. And let's ask for guidance with the intention to receive clarity about your higher purpose, your spiritual mission, what it is you're specifically here to do to assist humanity and the planet in making the huge shift into a higher dimension, and how you can shift past any blocks you may have in your way. Call in your higher self, archangels, ascended masters, benevolent galactic beings, spiritual teachers, whoever is important to you. And now bring to mind what you believe your higher purpose to be. If you're not sure, just tune into what brings you a sense of passion or joy in life, or how you've served others so far in your life. And let's first explore the gifts you bring to whatever work or service you've ever done. And don't try to be humble about this. Stand strong and honest within yourself and acknowledge the gifts and abilities you know you have. Perhaps let's focus first on your practical talents and skills, which have maybe shown up in whatever work you've done over the years, or even simply in your everyday personal life that you may just take for granted. For instance, maybe you have natural leadership qualities that show up, or organizational abilities, or perhaps what we might call mediation abilities. You know, you naturally facilitate communication between people really easily, or when you're in a group. Or maybe you're good at math or science, learning languages, writing, teaching, solving puzzles, making things with your hands. Or you have a comprehensive understanding about what's happening in the world. All these things are important. What are the practical skills you have developed in this life? Okay, next bring to mind what valuable experiences you've had in your life, ones in which you've learned a lot. You know, any important awakening experiences you've had, those are really important. Or certain relationship experiences you've learned a lot from. How about the challenging experiences in which great shifts have eventually taken place in you and you learned how to make your way through these experiences? What are the important experiences you've had that can help you in your mission? And lastly, let's take a look at any gifts of consciousness you've either brought into this life or you've developed as you've grown older. Perhaps it's a deep sense of empathy and compassion for others. Maybe you find that people find it easy to talk to you and confide their secrets in you. Or maybe you have healing abilities. Remember, you don't have to be trained in a certain profession to be a healer. There are many ways healing can be expressed. Or maybe you have a deep love and understanding of children, or animals, or plants. And perhaps you have what we would call psychic abilities. Do you ever experience type of telepathy, maybe, where you feel you can read people's minds pretty well? Or maybe you have experiences of clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, or you receive visions, or an ability to communicate with other dimensional beings. What are the most important gifts of consciousness you have to offer? And which ones bring you joy and a sense of passion? And ask yourself now, what is your higher purpose or spiritual mission? What are you here to offer to humanity and the earth during these challenging times of transition? It might be a little different from what you thought it to be. Okay, now become aware of what generally happens when you express your gifts and abilities. Are people basically receptive to them? How were your abilities and gifts received when you were a child? Were you supported by your parents and teachers? Did they get who you were? Did they encourage you to express yourself? Did you develop confidence in who you were? Or did you maybe become afraid to attract attention or stand out in some way because Maybe you felt you were different. Did people ever make fun of you? Did any of your earlier abilities you came in with just kind of close down at some point because it didn't feel safe to express them around people? Or maybe later on there were important people in your life who didn't understand you or value you. Or maybe they felt envious or competitive with you. They got judgmental. Or something else uncomfortable happened, maybe something even scary. You know, when you were expressing your gifts and perhaps at some point you made a decision to keep yourself small and invisible or to hide parts of yourself. Contemplate now, have any of these experiences stood in your way as you've attempted to activate your spiritual mission or to fully express it and expand further into it? Do you keep bumping into self-judgment and doubt? What could you do to begin dissolving any of these blocks to your full expression of your mission? So now let's just tune into any blocks you may have developed in past lives when attempting to express a spiritual mission you had back then. These are really important to be aware of, and they're often hard to tune into because they're usually unconscious. But just ask right now for help in remembering what traumatic thing may have happened in a past life that may have brought on a decision to be wary about ever putting your head above the radar again. Just drift back in time to a lifetime in which you were attempting to assist humanity into a higher consciousness, or perhaps to create circumstances for people that were more just and compassionate. Perhaps there was a life in which you were in some leadership role attempting to do this. Or you were a healer or someone involved in the esoteric arts, or just someone who dared to speak the truth. A time in which some kind of interference against you occurred, perhaps in the form of persecution, violence, even death. Or maybe it was deep humiliation and shame you experienced. A time in which you made a courageous attempt to bring more love and peace and healing and truth to the world, but somehow were not successful. And due to the trauma and pain you suffered, you made a decision to never try it again. So no matter how much you try now to fully express what you believe you're here to do, you keep getting stuck or finding you're sabotaging yourself. Somehow it doesn't feel safe. Just let this lifetime come to you. It may be in images, something you hear or sense or feel or just know. What was your experience? And what decision did you make? And now ask yourself, what can you do to help shift these blocks or impediments from past lifetimes so you can embark fully on accomplishing what you're here to do during these current times? Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes, come back to the room. And Darren is now going to guide you through some ways that will help you heal the blocks and challenges that you've discovered.
Wow. That was remarkable, Vidya. Thank you so much. Everything you shared. You went through so much in a short amount of time.
I know.
That could be a whole 5-day workshop, couldn't it? But you did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can take it from here. I know you're great in what you do.
Well, thank you for that vote of confidence. Okay, so I'm going to step out of receiving all that and into sharing something.
Yeah.
And so welcome to everybody again. I'm sure quite a few people obviously have come on since we started this. And we're also broadcasting this live on Facebook right now, Facebook Live. So
right.
there's
Great.
we don't know how many people are watching that, but to everybody on Facebook, hello to you also. Well, one of the things that you said, Vidya, that I just loved, because I've thought this so much myself, is that every single experience that every one of us have had, and as Clint Eastwood said, the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yeah.
have all brought us to this point.
Yes.
And therefore, they were all blessed experiences.
Yes.
I know that's very hard to accept because some of them didn't seem very blessed.
Yeah.
We just had a comment from one person who typed in fact, I'll actually read her comment from Anat. And she said, I was hoping you were going to bring up past lives. For many, many years, light workers have been punished for being themselves and still are, ? Is it safe now to be without being burned on the stake? How can we trust this? And that's a great question to put out. How can we step out of the burden of those things that samskaras, burdens, impressions, whatever you want to call it, that we may have accumulated from all the things Vidya was talking about? And that's where we're going to go now. And before I even go into all the things I'm going to share, I'm going to go to the punchline right away. I'll tell you the punchline before I tell the joke. And that is that we have always been free of suffering in our truest self. A part of us has focused in the third dimension, has come here where we're subject to every form of suffering. We've tasted probably every bit that possibly we could in all these different experiences. Part of awakening, part of remembering who you are, is to know that your truest self never actually suffered.
Yes.
It is a being of light and always has been. And so that may sound abstract or it may sound real to you, but the fact is that the more you can experience that, not just believe it, but experience that, the easier it is to heal those parts that have been wounded in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I am going to lead you through some practices that I have found extremely precious and valuable to actually go in and do the work to actually transform this stuff in a short amount of time, even in the short amount of time we have left in this webinar. And before I do that, I want to say a little bit about myself, because many of you don't know me, and what my path of finding my purpose and mission has been. I'll keep this very, very brief, but just to give you a little thumbnail about that. It's one thing very interesting about me is I grew up in the 1950s and 60s, and at a very young age, before I ever heard of anything like this at all. Like I had two parents who were basically liberal Jewish people who were basically atheists. They really had no sense of belief in God, or they liked selling the holidays because it was a fun family thing. But there was no one around me talking about any of these things like we're talking about here. But somehow I had this sense growing up that there was this huge universal consciousness around me. Like there was I didn't know what words to call it, but there was something bigger and different than what I was experiencing in my regular life. And I'm glad I knew that, because I had some very difficult experiences, very traumatic experiences growing up, very wounding experiences at a very young age, a lot of alienation. I'm not going to go through the whole laundry list, but basically, so I had this very dual experience of knowing that there was this bigger picture, this purpose I had, and yet feeling very cut off from it, and it wasn't what was going on in my day-to-day life. And what I actually used to fantasize about as a child was somehow sitting someplace and just sending out beams of light around the planet and helping to uplift the planet. And if I ever dared say that to anyone, they would look at me like I was crazy or an egomaniac or a space case or something. So I didn't talk about it much. But it certainly was not my experience day to day. So I grew up, I'd say, to make a long story short, the 60s, I was exploring through like drugs and alternative lifestyles and things like that. And 70s, it was more, I studied with spiritual masters and went into the spiritual and went to India. When I was still a teenager, I was in India studying with the guru when I was only 19 years old, and really in earnest searching through that. And then in the 80s, started studying medicine, became an acupuncturist, learned all these different forms of healing. And the 90s was having a business, manufacturing medical equipment for acupuncturists and teaching seminars all over the place. And it kind of is like each decade was a different theme. Sounds like that Frank Sinatra song. But anyway, so I really have been on a spiritual path a long time and have been following my purpose to a certain extent. But we all have these turning points in our life. And I had a huge turning point just a few years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, when I felt a real sense of emptiness about my purpose. Like, yeah, I'm doing it to a certain extent. I'm doing healing work. I'm an acupuncturist. I have a business where I'm helping other professionals in the healthcare field. But something was missing. It was a really vital part that I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to get to it. So I went to Guatemala to do a personal retreat near the Mayan, where the Mayans country was. And I had the opportunity to be with 2 Mayan shamans who did these personal ceremonies for me by the edge of the lake with fires. And the upshot of all that was they told me, you're on a good path. You have a lot of potential here, but you're not quite doing it yet. And I came back to the United States, went through quite a bit of shamanic work, including some plant medicine ceremonies, just a lot of things that were very strong experiences. And it became like a ton of bricks. It hit me that, yes, I've been doing healing work, but I haven't fully committed to it. I haven't fully stepped into it. I've been still doing following a lot of other things that weren't quite that. And time was going by pretty quickly. So I made this much bigger commitment that even though I don't even know what it is, I'm going to do this higher dimensional healing. I'm going to learn everything I can. And I'm going to put my finances and everything, I'm not going to let anything guide me except doing this and trusting that things will come. And then, so I started studying with many different people that I could find who did this like 5th dimensional healing or biofield healing, things along these lines. And it really started opening up in a big way. The transformation became much different. And then what happened is I started hearing from one of my spiritual guides, and my very amazing guide, and he basically told me that I needed to create a school so that other people who are light workers, other people who are in the healing professions or medical professions could be activated into this higher healing, because each of them would touch hundreds of people. So to make a long story short, that's what happened. And this school started last year. It's called Bridge to Mastery. And I've been doing this and helping other people to get into their higher purpose, who have the ability to be healers. So, but yet I'm sure there's many more aspects that'll continue to open up because it's a constant process. We just take one step at a time. That's what we're really doing. And so what I'd like to do before we go through this process of clearing and of claiming this higher level, which, believe it or not, I mean, this energy is so powerful, this quantum energy, that even during this webinar, this free webinar, if you are ready to, without even going to Guatemala, without even being in front of a shaman or anything like that, you could take a big step into your purpose, even if you're not clear what it is. So what Vidya was doing is some beautiful reflections to help get in touch with some of these things. So what I'd like to ask you to do is, I was asking before if you had a notebook and pen, if you can grab something to write with, just take a couple of minutes to write down what you feel now is your highest purpose. If you need to go run to the other room to get a piece of paper, that's fine. We're going to keep this really brief, but this will really help you in what we're about to do. If you just put down what your best understanding is right now. And like I was saying about my story, you're probably already doing a purpose. You're probably already on a purpose. But because we're in a time now of such rapid transformation, and also because there is such an urgent need now, it's very likely that there could be a new level of it, or a new direction in it, or some new nuances of it that are calling for you to recognize them. So I'm just going to be quiet for a couple of minutes and give you a little chance to write. And as you do this writing, try to not just do it from your rational mind. Just breathe with us. There's a beautiful group energy here, very powerful vortex of light that is around all of us who are on this. Just let your heart connect with that, be part of this, and just breathe it in. And you may not even know what you're about to write, but just put something down. In addition to writing down what you believe your higher purpose is, also write down what the blocks and challenges are that may be in the way of you fulfilling it. Vidya was talking about. She took us through that. Like what could seem to be holding you back or delaying you or distracting you or making you too afraid or anything like that. Make sure when you put it down in paper, it's a thing of power. Even if you use a digital device, that's fine too. Okay. All I wanted to do is just jot a few things. You can go do plenty more of this later after the webinar, but just to give you a focal point for where we're going. Thank you for doing that if you wrote some things down. So I want to talk a little bit about the quantum field. What is the quantum field? The mini version of the answer to that is that there's the scientific way of looking at the quantum field, and then there's a spiritual consciousness way to look at the quantum field. The scientific way is that quantum physicists recognize that there is a quantum field. There's a whole system called quantum field theory. And it basically is a field of unlimited potentialities that has not yet come into creation, not yet come into manifestation. And it can turn into literally everything in the universe, and it does. And when consciousness or some force is connected with the quantum field, it does what's called collapse. into something that we would consider tangible or at least measurable with scientific instruments, or that we could, could be a banana, it could be a subatomic particle, it could be anything, it could be a planet, but something that is tangible to us. And everything that comes into creation keeps going back into formlessness, and it goes back and forth. That's what's going on, the dance of creation. So we're all in that dance. So the quantum field, the field of unlimited possibilities, in addition to being something to do with part of quantum physics, is also the biggest part of our true self. In other words, we are that field of unlimited potentiality. The other thing about the quantum field is that the fifth dimension, the part of us that is in oneness, here's some interesting news, folks. That part has never been wounded. That part has never been traumatized. That part has always just been what it is, an aspect of the divine. So part of awakening that we're all going through is to remember that, to feel that. So I want to just give you a couple of tangible, those are kind of abstract things I just said, so a couple of tangible stories from some people I work with who have, through the quantum field, have realized something about their purpose. I was in Hawaii a couple of years ago, and I was doing a lecture on Maui, and some woman invited me to come over to her husband and her house to have dinner. So I went over and I found out that she was a healer, and her husband had been a big-time financier in New York City and done all these huge deals and so on, and then has retired to Hawaii, where he was now doing some bookkeeping, and he's in his 70s. And he told me that he had this goal to write a whole series of books that would change the world. That would be something like Way of the Peaceful Warrior or something. That would be a powerful new idea in fictional form. But he told me he hadn't been able to start doing it because one reason or another, he just hadn't gotten around to it. He said, yeah, I think maybe next year I'll probably be ready to do this. And I said, well, what if you didn't have to wait till next year? What if there is some way you could start fulfilling that purpose now? And so he had a session with me, a quantum field session. And after that, I think he had 2 sessions, and I came back to California. And then he contacted me and said, I know I prepaid for another session, but give it to someone else. I don't need it because I'm writing like crazy every day. This thing is pouring out of me. And something shifted where now I am really on my purpose. So I remember that was one thing. And then just yesterday, we had a conference call for the Bridge to Mastery, and one of the people who's an acupuncturist from San Jose was sharing how she had had a day job and was doing her acupuncture part-time and had a lot of ideas and feelings about how she could do more higher level healing, but kind of felt held back by her family demands and self-doubt and different issues. And she said last night that now that she's done this higher dimensional work, she quit her day job, some more left brain nerdy kind of thing she was doing last summer. She's doing full-time acupuncture and healing. She's working with the Merkaba, the light field, and extending it to all these people. And her business is just, so many more people are showing up. And so she knew what her purpose was, but there was something holding her back, all these reasons and all these situations. And when she connected more with the quantum field, somehow those things didn't loom so large, and she was able just to step into it and have a much higher level experience. So this is just a couple of practical examples of this. So what we're going to do now is a process of what I'd call closing the gap. Now, those 2 people I just mentioned, and myself so much throughout my life, have experienced this thing we call the gap. It's knowing you have this higher purpose, feeling it, sensing it, longing for it, whatever the case is, but somehow there's a gap between that and how you're actually living day to day. And it keeps being pushed out to the future, or someday, or if only. And many people who feel that gap search through a whole series of different healers and workshops and spiritual practices and whatever, then giving up and escaping from the whole mess, whatever the case is. So I'm glad you did. If you did that little bit of writing, it was to help you identify what's the gap. So just think about it for a moment. Now, if you feel like you're totally on your purpose, you're on fire, doing what you're here to do and loving this, then you're not really dealing with a gap. And that's really great. If you sense there is a gap, then just think about what that is. How does it feel in your body to have that gap? Also, just what the things been going on the last few weeks in this country, United States. If there was anything that would motivate us to get past our own gaps, this has got to be it. If there's any higher purpose that I can see for our current president and all these things going on, it's to make light workers be less complacent about stepping into their power and purpose and their mission. It's the one purpose I could think of that has been well served there. And so at this point, just be aware of what it is that you need to shift, or that you could shift, or you could integrate in yourself so that you can step into this mission. So now we're going to do another thing that's another form of guided meditation within this field. So put your feet flat on the floor, make your back as straight as you can. And I'm going to ask you to put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, right behind your two front teeth. That's called the master hookup. And that one simple thing puts you much more in touch with your own sense of inner balance and groundedness. Probably easier if you close your eyes. And just tune into this field of energy that we're in right now in any way that you can. This big group of people all over the place. We're all focused together. Take a few deep breaths. I'm sure everybody on this knows something about meditation. Just tune into your center. And what Vidya said about going into the center of your head is an excellent way to connect with your 0 point, which is the point of oneness within yourself. It might help to put one hand over your heart. Connect also with your heart center. So we're going to start with one of the greatest powers available to us in the universe, the power of intention. So just silently to yourself, just say, it is my intention, and then fill in the rest of that sentence, what your intention is in this moment. As far as it could be something like, it's my intention to step out of blockages and limitations and fulfill my higher purpose. It's my intention to release fear and trauma from the past. It's my intention to get more clear on my purpose. It's my intention to make a new commitment to my purpose. Whatever it is for you, just make that intention, powerful intention. You make an intention, you are tapping into the same power that created this whole universe and continues to create it every moment. Okay, next thing, invocation. One of the powers we have as human beings is to call upon these infinite powers of light and love and universal presence. We have so many names for them. Everything ranging from God to the Christ to the Tao to the universe, quantum field. But it doesn't matter what name you choose, but call upon your source of power, guidance, and love that you've been able to tap into in your life, or you would like to tap into in your life. And go only for the gold, the highest guidance, the highest source of energy. You know, there's a lot of different astral zones where we can tap into different kinds of energies and entities that are still in duality, that are not, you know, at the highest level. So I'd suggest just demand of yourself, I call on the highest level of my guidance, of my love, of my source energies, of the power that is within me. And now I'd suggest that feel in your heart, what is your commitment? What does your love want you to do? That love in your heart. What does that really want you to do? You know, considering everything you know that's going on out in the world, in your family, in your own personal life, politically, economically, environmentally, in terms of social justice, in terms of the gift you have to give, just feel within your heart your commitment that you're ready to make right now. This is a commitment to yourself. It's a commitment to all the people in your circle. And it's a commitment to all those people and perhaps animals or the earth itself that you're here to serve. Maybe a lot of people that haven't shown up yet. They've been waiting. because I have had this feeling strongly in my life that there's been this big group of souls that could fill up like a football stadium waiting for me to get out of my own way enough so that they could come and receive the gifts that I have. But they've been waiting, kind of tapping their fingers, like, come on, get with it, get over yourself, Darren, start doing your purpose more and more. So I think that's true of all of us. If you're on this call, I would sense it. I would sense that that's probably true for you. Maybe not filling up the football stadium, maybe whatever it was you'd imagine, but there's many souls waiting for you to come online with this next level of your purpose. So now I do suggest, if you can, to put one hand over your heart center and feel your great love for the earth. And just send a beam of love from your heart down through the central column of your body, down through your root chakra, and imagine that a grounding cord is just coming from your root chakra that's as wide as your whole body, barreling down instantly to the core of the earth. You could see that as like a tree or a pipe or a fiber optic cable, however you want to visualize that. The powerful grounding cord connecting you and your love of the earth to the core of the earth. Just see it wrapping around the molten iron core of the earth a few times. And then feel that love coming back up to your heart center from the earth. And then just from your love again, shoot it straight up through the top of your head, intending to connect with the highest source of where you come from, where your love, where your healing abilities, your passion, your power really comes from. Your spiritual team, your spiritual family. Doesn't matter if you intellectually know what that is, just intend to connect with your highest source energies from your place of love. Then feel that love return back to you, back down the column above your head, the bridge above your head, and down through your head and back to your heart. And then always remember to bring in your own self-love, the love that you have for yourself. Just amp that up a little more. Your own inner child self, all parts of you. Total acceptance, honoring of yourself. So that's the Holy Trinity, Mother Earth, the universe, self-love. So this is your sacred heart. Just feel your sacred heart. And just feel the unlimited quality in your sacred heart. And now, you can, if you want to, you can simply say, I now connect and open myself to my quantum, to the quantum field of unlimited possibilities that is here for me and all of us. So this is your field of unlimited possibilities. This contains your unbroken, unwounded self, the one that has always been there, no matter what you've been through. And now from this place, just ask your higher guidance, ask your soul to show you something about your purpose, something about this next step of your purpose and your mission on earth. It could be an image, it could just be a thought, it could be an emotional feeling, it could be a body rush. Just honor whatever comes. And now at this point, all you need to do is receive for these next few minutes. Just relax and just staying in your sacred heart. Just receive this gift. There's a beautiful vortex, so we can call a Merkaba, surrounding everyone who's on this webinar, who's on Facebook right now. Doesn't matter where you are geographically. And if it feels right to you, just breathe in that light, every cell of your being, to every part of your psyche, every part of your your energy bodies. Just let your love flow out to everyone else here on this conference. Because you have so much love. You have boundless love. You have boundless potentiality. Just imagine that there is this quantum vortex spinning around your body, starting from a Metatron's cube below your feet, just rising up, this counterclockwise spinning vortex of light. And you can release anything that you don't need anymore that's been an old belief or an old limitation, an old fear or trauma or old PTSD from a past life, whatever it is. You can just simply intend that I'm releasing this into the vortex to go back to source. And as you do that, it creates a vacuum, it creates a space. And in that space, you can simply receive more of your own higher light, more of your own divine presence. Now we're going to have one more minute before we bring this into closure. And just during this last minute, just ask one more time, are there any other messages for me, any other visions, insights, attunements, empowerments that I could receive in this moment to support me in doing my greatest service, my full mission that I'm capable of doing at this time and moving into these next weeks, months to next year. So now you can stay in this beautiful energy. I'm going to ask you, if your eyes are closed, to open your eyes. Just don't have to stop, and you don't have to move out of meditation just because you open your eyes. Just meditate with eyes open. And while this is experience, it's fresh in your mind, take your notebook. Just any insights that you just had, you could just take 1 or 2 minutes just to write them down. If there's nothing to write, then just stay with the energy. And just, if in this process, any fears came up for you, any self-doubt, any of these kind of things, no problem. This is just part of the process. It may just be, just acknowledge it, bless it, and let it go. Don't feel bad that you had those feelings. It's okay. We all go through them. These are called pretender voices. They're pretending to be truth and they're not. It just takes courage and perseverance to keep going even when those pretender voices are trying to talk, pull you off this purpose. So if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to put them into the chat. We have a few more minutes to do that. But while you're writing any questions or comments or shares you have, I wanted to tell you about some resources where to go from here. Is that each of us has a personal service, and I believe we all have a planetary service. And it may go beyond the planet. I'm not going to limit it just to this planet. A lot of us may have a galactic purpose. But certainly, as you do your personal service, one person at a time or one moment at a time, just know that you are doing your planetary service by holding this light. And especially when we come together at events like this, it's such an amplifying thing. So it's great to do everything you can to connect with others who are in this process as well. And what I'm going to do is put up a couple of PowerPoint slides to show you the books that Vidya and I have written that could be of help to you in a moment. And also I want to let you know that there's 2 resources that I have offered that are coming up very soon, that if you are somebody who is on a healing path and you're looking for the tools and support and retreat and fellowship of other healers to really actualize this, what those 2 things are is that one is that there's a retreat coming up November 30th through December 4th. It's going to be near Santa Cruz, California, at a beautiful Mount Madonna Retreat Center, and it's called Activate Your Higher Healing Energy Retreat. It's going to be an exquisite experience with an amazing group of people that are just, people fall in love with each other and just become deep friends at these retreats and have major transformational experiences. So that's one thing coming up. And the other thing is I just released a program, a 4-month program that's part of that Bridge to Mastery school, that to train people in this quantum healing and in a lot of self-transformation. And so whatever field you're in, whether you're already in the healing arts or it's something you just want to start moving into, these are some of the best information to help you to go to that higher level and be able to operate on this more quantum level, wherever the starting point is. So what I'm going to do is put up these pictures of our books so that you can see some resources from those as well. And then after that, if there's questions, we will take them in comments. So I'm just going to share my screen for a moment. Hold on here. So here's the contact information for Vidya and myself. You can see Vidya's website, vidyafrazier.com. And she said there's a contact form on her website if you want to write to her. Anything you want to say about that, Vidya?
No, I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, pretty clear. And then I'm Darren Starwin. This is my website, drstarwin.com. And then here's my email. And so if you send me an email, darren@drstarwin.com, several things. One is if you want information about the upcoming retreat or this 4-month program, I'd be glad to send you that information. And also I have a lot of free videos that guide through these quantum healing meditations that I'll be happy to share with you. So you can request any of those things, like I want the free access to the free meditation videos, or I'd like to have information about these upcoming programs, and I'll be happy to send that to you. So you can do that by writing to me at darren@drstarwin.com or going to my website, and there's contact forms there. And then these are the 4 books that I'm aware of that Vidya's written. She has one book called Awakening to the Fifth Dimension. I've read 2 of them myself, and it's a fabulous book. She's taken this ascension experience and moving in the 5th dimension and made it so practical and down to earth for people to know, like, how the experiences that people are going through, like why you're going through these experiences, what you can do about it, how you can move into your mission and your purpose. And I've also read Triumph of the Light, her most recent book, which is just an amazing expose of what's going on in the world and a lot of the hidden things going on behind the scenes. It helps to make sense of a lot of these crazy things going on and sort of how the light is coming into triumph on earth. So it's a very hopeful and also, revealing book. The other 2 I've not read. Anything else you'd like to say here, Vidya, about them?
The Art of Letting Go is no longer available.
Okay, all right, okay. Take that one off.
An old book, yes.
Okay.
But doesn't matter.
And then there's 3 books that I've written. Reclaiming Your Calm Center is one that is really about what we're talking about here in terms of coming into the 0 point within. And so that's my most recent book. And then the other 2 are books that I've written more for people who are in the acupuncture, holistic healing professions. One is Microcurrent Electroacupuncture and Healing the Root of Pain. So these are the 3 books that I've written. And they're all available on Amazon.
And I've read Reclaiming Your Calm Center, which is incredible. It's just,
Wow.
there's so much information in there.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yep.
So now I'm going to turn these screens off. We'll go back and just see if there are any comments or shares here. Let's see, we have, okay, one person said, I've known my mission for many years now. It's to bring into one all the separations that occurred during the move from the 5th dimension into the 4th. People who think they've moved into the 5th dimension is not likely for 2 main reasons. One is they need to remove their subconscious and blend all the many unknowns to the human race separations. My mission is to move into that new 5th dimensional, and then with my new body come back into the 4th dimension, assist any that are willing to do to make that shift. I don't know the name of that person. And then someone else said, TB, this has been like a great Qigong session, giving and sharing with all of you. Thank you. Anat said, thank you, Vidya and Darren. Very kind of you to extend yourself in this manner, and I gained some insight. Have to run now. Okay. Pamela said, thank you both. Felt such an abundance of love and light from this beautiful session. So far, no questions, may lead us comments.
Yeah.
Svetlana said, thank you. I had an idea what my mission was, have created miracles before, but today I got a very clear picture. 6th dimensional healing. Thank you.
Wow. All right.
Very cool. Yeah. And then Andrea said, so beautiful, so powerful. Thank you. I think we have one over here. Okay, Clara said, your explanation of our higher self never being harmed was great. Now I'd like to know how to rethink that if our body was hurt early in life over and over. Do you have anything you'd like to say about that, Vidya? I'll read that one more time. She said,
Yeah.
your explanation of our higher self never being harmed was great. Now I'd like to know how to rethink that if our body was hurt early in life over and over.
Well, I think, in the way you said it, and I agree with you, that essential part of who we are. It's not the body, it's not the mind, not the emotions, which is something we took on as a soul. What you were saying, and what I agree with, is that the soul has never been hurt. It lives in perfection. And that what the 5D healing really is about is merging with this higher self, this soul. I mean, that's the path we're taking right now, is realizing who we really are. And that this extension of us that's called the human being is just one part of the soul. It's what it created in order to be here. And for a lot of us, it's broken in a lot of ways, but It's not who we are. I mean, that's the main thing to get. That it's something that's with us. It's something we use. And the whole awakening is about awakening to that fact that it's not, it's a part of who we are, but it's not the essential part of who we are. I hope that answers it.
Thank you. And yeah, that's great. And I have something to add to that also. I can just say how it is for me, Clara. And Clara, if you're still with us, would you please send another message just so I know you're still with us? I want to talk to somebody who's here. But I would say that whatever our path is at this time takes a tremendous amount of courage and a tremendous amount of self-love. There's no easy way. Maybe there is an easy way. I mean, maybe there is, but it's not, there's to our human self, it may not seem easy. Mm-hmm. So how it is for me is, I'll tell you, I can sense a really, like I'm tapped into a very, transcendent state of consciousness that's available to me. And yet I still have a lot of the same wounds that I grew up with. They haven't gone away. They're not gone, and they still loom large to me at different times. So, the fantasies I had that someday I'd be in the state of enlightenment and everything would just be groovy from then on, it sure hasn't happened yet. And if it ever does, that will be cool. But I think as long as there's so many people suffering on earth, none of us can feel totally separate from that. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to say is that what's working for me is feeling the quantum field, feeling my true self, and then continuing to love and embrace the wounded part.
Yeah.
With compassion and self-love. Like maybe some entitled part of me expects that, hey, that should be gone by now with all the meditation I've done, all the money I've spent on therapy and all the spiritual paths I've done. I've been on so many paths I've become pathological, with all that, shouldn't all that pain be gone? Well, it's not. I don't know if it's all gone for any of us. Some of us have had much worse trauma in our childhood than others. Perhaps that's what you're expressing. And I have great compassion for that. But you are a great soul, Clara, and you have the capacity to hold that part of you in love and compassion and firmness, and just not let it define who you are. And I'm not saying that's easy. It takes like a real commitment to, like, moment by moment, to staying conscious, to staying present. And of course, what really helps is when I offer service and love to others, it takes the focus off me. And little by little, I feel those old wounding, transforming and so on, and turning into sometimes more, different things. So I think in order to be light workers, to be serving at this time, that seems, at least for me, that's part of the journey, just to keep holding myself in love. And then from that point, have something I can actually give to others.
It is the main job of all of us, is around developing more self-love. It really just comes down to that. And to remember, as we do this, as we heal ourselves, we are affecting everybody on the planet. We truly are connected. So in a lot of ways, if you're focusing on healing yourself and loving yourself more, you are doing a great service. You are doing your purpose. That's
a beautiful point, Vidya, because I love that you said that, because that's something we forgot to say today that we should have, is that we may think, and I've often thought this, that unless I'm doing I've been guilty of all the things you said before, like if I'm not making money, I'm not fulfilling my purpose, if I'm not having some grandiose thing going on. So I understand all those pitfalls. The thing is, even we may think we have to be doing some external thing like healing lots of people, but for some of us, just healing ourselves is such a great service, because you're connected to countless souls, your ancestors, all these other souls you're in different soul groups with. And every time you take a step toward loving yourself more, having more compassion for yourself, accepting yourself more, and getting more grounded, you're actually blessing all those other souls and helping to free them. So there very well are probably people who their whole life, all they're going to do is just deal with their own self-healing. And that's not less than someone who's out there having 1,000 people who are students.
There's another kind of question that just came in.
You're right. You want to say that one? Yeah, there's a few questions just came in.
Well, there's one to you, Darren, that's so helpful. Yes, the woundedness doesn't magically disappear once and for all. Not one more thing to feel is a failure, but we continue on the path anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really true.
Yeah. Oh, here's a question. Can this type of healing help with a physical challenge? I have been healing for several years, but seem to be stuck. So I think that's a question for you.
Well, it could be for either one of us, but can it help with a physical challenge? Absolutely it can, because the way, right now we know that even medical science acknowledges that our thoughts and our emotions are constantly repatterning our physical body through hormones, through neurotransmitters, through just even things like to do with subtle energy. And so it's constantly going on. It's called the living matrix of our body. So generally, just reading between the lines of what you're saying, I'm assuming you're talking about something that you've been dealing with for a while that hasn't been responding easily or well to things you've already tried. And that would say to me that that's representative of some, I call them some scars, some complex in you that is up for transformation that probably isn't that easy to transform. And so it's a combination of, so yes, the thing is those physical things can change. I mean, it doesn't happen for everybody. Some people have to accept physical, especially if you've had a leg amputated or, there are certain things we just have to accept, but a lot of things can be healed. And I've had, many people in my own practice that have remarkable shifts. in long-term physical issues when they finally connect with some of these feelings they weren't acknowledging. And not just the feelings, but then bring in the quantum field, their unlimited field of possibility. So I'd say, definitely it's hopeful that you can do that. And receiving sessions, from someone who you feel drawn to, who's doing this kind of work, definitely can help a great deal. I know Vidya and I both offer sessions. And so, and there's maybe other people you're drawn to as well, but it is good to get help when you can and learn to build up your own confidence that you can tap into your own inner healing. Yeah, so thanks for asking that. And Nozomi, who I met at a healing conference in Berkeley a couple of months ago, said, "Thank you both for this amazing presentation. I'm interested in finding a way to bring quantum healing outside therapeutic clinical consulting room to address injustice and oppression in our society."
Oh, boy.
Right on. Well, you absolutely can. I was talking about the Bridge to Mastery School. Like, one of the things we do, like we had a conference call last night, and one of the things we did is we actually sent out the Merkaba of light to areas in the world, like where the storm in the Florida Panhandle was last night, and the Washington, D.C. And I mean, it may sound like delusions of grandeur, but we actually can do this, especially when we're in a group and we're really coming from this place. So you absolutely can bring this quantum field to change, to help contribute to change on Earth, accelerating change on Earth. And so I'm glad you brought that up, Nozomi. Thank you, because that's something very near to my heart. So we should talk more about that. Well, I think we're near the end where we have to close this down now. Okay, then she also said, how can quantum healing be used to tackle racism, financial exploitation, and war? I love that.
I think that's the subject of another webinar, perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the next webinar, right?
That's a really good one.
That's so great. Yeah, so we're going to close now. And so Vidya, thank you so much. I know you spent so much time preparing this. I know we've been talking about this for months now, and you brought your whole life, many lifetimes of experience to this. So thank you for everything that you've offered here today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been delightful. Like I say, I just really feel the energy of this group. It just so excites me. That the time is here. We're being ignited, and we are a group. We're a group consciousness, and we can all tune into this. You're not alone. A lot of people out there, I know you feel alone. You don't know anyone much around you who's into all this kind of stuff. But know that in the quantum field, we are all here. And, hopefully we'll become more and more here as time goes on, as more people, wake up to what their purpose is. And it's just, I don't know, I'm just very excited about these times.
Yeah, it is such an urgent time. And it really is. This is the time where whatever gift we have, whatever we can do, this is the time to be doing it.
Yep.
And so I'm going to be doing my quantum healing. I'm also going to volunteer to call people for voter registration. I'm willing to work on the third dimension as well. Whatever I can do to try to. So thank you everybody for everybody's effort. So we're going to close now, and there's going to be a recording of this, and so I'm going to make that available. And so there was some people had questions we didn't get to time to. So I said Vidya has a contact form on her website, and I gave you my email, so you're welcome to contact us. And so next time there will be, I think we'll probably do another event in the first quarter of next year. We talked about doing another joint webinar, and if you have any suggestions for those, feel free to let us know. So good night, blessings to everybody, and to thank to all the spiritual beings who are here with us. I want to acknowledge the Christ and the universal logos, Divine Mother, Mother, Father, God, whatever, Mother Earth, everybody who is here supporting this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you, love you, love you. Gong Sung. So good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.